How are you doing? What are your thought processes today? And what's so good about thinking thoughts? For some of us, our heads are crammed full of thoughts. They are not all particularly good for us. If you're anything like me, you have the ability to worry about not being worried. For a long time I had a tendency of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And basically that was a habit. And it became an ingrained habit, almost in my DNA if you like. Because that's exactly what I thought was going to happen. And each day that I made that thought, it made that thought even more likely to come to be. You see, thoughts are like the root. But even then there's something beyond that. There's a notion, an idea. Then it becomes a thought. Then it becomes something else. And it has an evolution. And a thought's natural evolution, I think, is to manifest into reality. And I just thought that right now, there, because I hadn't realised what I was going to say before I said it. But it's interesting, I've understood for a long time that if I allow my thoughts free rein, and although, yes, it is just a teeny bit dangerous at times, it can also be very funny, but when I allow my thoughts free rein, interesting things can happen. It usually takes a kind of stimulus, like doing this for instance, thinking about how I'm going to entertain you for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or however long it takes me to get through this. Or in conversation with someone, and suddenly I have, anybody who's watched Friends will know what I'm going to say next, a Phoebe moment. Oh, ah, and it's very much like that. Sometimes I manage to do it just inside my head and sometimes it comes right out. But thinking, that's a process. And it's something that happens inside our brains, the frontal cortex, that we grew when we suddenly realised that we needed to communicate more. We need to understand more. So we kind of thought our thinking into being after a fashion. There was a need, and then there was an evolutionary change. Now, how we got from one place to the other, we're still not entirely sure about, because there's still this thing called the missing link. However, maybe we just jumped. Maybe we had an inspirational leap of faith that we could do it. Because when thoughts become things, if we think we can, we can. And as Mr. Ford was so happy to say, if you think you can't, you can't. There's a guy called Wilfred Peterson, and I know about him because he's actually on my bookshelf. Well, at the moment he's not. He's here. And yes, it's backwards, but since you're also good at those Facebook memes where reading things backwards, it says, big thinking precedes great achievement. It kind of does. But there's a missing link. There are many, many, many big thoughts. Probably an abundance more big thoughts than there are big achievements. And there are plenty of those. So just think about how many big thoughts people have had and actually not brought them into being because they haven't taken action about them. It stuns me to think of how many ideas I've actually let slip because I've thought about them, not written them down, and they've just disappeared like fog in the sun. So understand that when you have that idea, write it down. Because that thought might be something that could become an achievement. The other way to do it is to look at Huna. And for the people on the Shamanism Scotland page, Journeys with Bear and Wolf and the Bear and Wolf group, you will know exactly, and Spiral Heart Healing, you will know exactly what I'm talking about when I say Huna. Hawaiian shamanism. It's actually the basis of NLP. 7 pillars. And it's amazing. The Hawaiians have an interesting way of thinking about time, about manifestation of thought, about being. And this chap, Serge Kahili King, this is actually one of my favourite books. It's one of my absolute, I'm always reading it books. I will read it to the end, put it down for even just a few minutes, then start it again. Because every time I read it, I see a nuance, something different. And for anybody who says, how can you read the same book again and again and again? Well, it's really easy. Because I'm always looking for the things I missed the first time, because I was in a frame of mind the first time I read it that was different to the second time. And so on and so on and so on. It gives you ideas of things that you're looking for, because your universal mind is also thinking with you. It's facilitating your thought processes. And that's where manifestation comes in. Your thoughts will become things. Now you think about it. When you say, I don't think I can do that, what are you actually saying? You've already thought about it and you've made a decision, you've made a choice. Because thinking that you can't do it doesn't mean that you're maybe going to change your mind about doing it. It means that truly there's a reason that you don't want to do it. Truly there's a reason that you feel that you're not capable of that. Now I know this very well because I'm dyscalculate, which is another identification label. But it's better than the one that I had when I was at school, which was stupid. She can't count, she's stupid. And that was a generational thing, and it took me until I was 55 to actually get the understanding. Got myself into university, which is how I met the guy who taught me this, that it wasn't that I was stupid, it was that, number one, this way of wiring in the brain hadn't been understood or even discovered when I was at school. And also, it hadn't been able to be taught how to handle it. So the teachers had no way of teaching me, understanding how to teach me how to count. NLP also helped me with that. And it helped me a lot with thinking too. Because then I could understand why it was that I was thinking the way that I did about other things. If you've ever had a conversation with me, you will understand that my thoughts are all over the place sometimes, and I can go twisty-turny right off the path, and it's a bit like a Billy Connolly sketch. You know, he starts one place and then you end up on the other side of the world from where you started. Only he sometimes gets back to where he's going. I rarely do, because I get lost in it unless somebody pulls me back. My husband Andrew is very good at doing that. He's very good at controlling how he thinks, because he has Asperger's syndrome. So his thoughts are very formulated, very structured. So it's an interesting mix. But I digress. You see, this is what happens when I think about thoughts, and I'm thinking about thoughts all the time. I just manifested going off on a tangent. When we do that, and we're learning new things, it is scary. And for a long time, the scientific community thought that when we reached about the age of 21, our brain had stopped growing, didn't have any more capacity to learn anymore. We'd stuffed everything we actually could in there, and there just wasn't going to be room for more. And then they did a study on London taxi drivers, and they discovered neuroplasticity was working. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the thing that's called the knowledge with London taxi drivers, the black cab drivers. Black cabs, those iconic vehicles in London, the guys who drive those things spend months to years going around everywhere in London, finding all the streets, that every nook and cranny, every one-way system, every roundabout, everything about inner London and greater London. And they keep that knowledge in their heads. And the scientists discovered that their brain was actually making new connections so that this could be stored. So it really means is that we are learning machines, and the way that we learn is by thinking that we can. It also keeps our brain active, which is also good. Particularly for things like Alzheimer's, they're telling us now, learn a new language, do something different, learn how to do puzzles. Sudoku might be good. Possibly not for me. That's still an interesting situation for me, although I'm a lot better at it, because the emotion's gone. I'm not really ashamed anymore or embarrassed to say that I have difficulty with numbers. And my former profession as a veterinary nurse, I dealt with numbers all the time. Quite well, in fact. Very well, usually. Because my brain had learned a way of doing it. That when I didn't think about it, that it's like, yeah, it's a bit like dealing with animals. You don't look them directly in the eye. Kind of look at them from the side. If you look them straight on, whoa, it's harsh. But if you just have them in your peripheral vision, they get calm and they get quiet, and you can see them. That's kind of like what it is for numbers with me. So thinking is more than just the odd thought about what you're going to have for dinner tonight. Ooh, maybe I would like to read a book. Or, what the hell is going on in that film? I have no idea what they're talking about. Don't get that. Thinking is powerful stuff. We're even doing it when we're asleep because we're thinking dreams. All our dreams is about the stuff that we've been sitting on the periphery, that's been trying to get in. Our universal mind is trying to tell us things about how to actually get on in life, do things, fix things, manifest some wonderful things. We have a habit though, some of us, maybe even all of us some of the time, to paraphrase Lincoln, to mither, to worry, because we tend to be formed that way. We tend to be taught to look at the bad stuff more often than not. And I'm only speaking from experience, my own personal experience of, don't do that, this will happen. Don't do this, that will happen. And it's not going to be good for you. So it tends to limit your situation.
So take a little leap of faith and think outside the box and see what happens. See what kind of fun you could work out for tomorrow, because Friday is a fun day. And remember, if you want to think nice things, good things, and good things happen, you made it that way. And it can be, that things are going to happen that are not so nice. That's not to say that you thought it that way, but how you think about that happening can make all the difference. So let's think about something fun that we can think of for tomorrow. We'll see what we can manifest. Take care.